Welcome to the chapter 252 review, analysis, yap session, whatever you guys like to refer to it as. And today, I'll be going over the chapter as per usual, while bringing it to life for you guys to watch. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about in this chapter specifically when it comes to the soul, since we finally got more information on it in the story, how it works, all of that jazz. Anything on the soul in this series is a big deal because 1, it allows us to better understand the power system in the story itself, 2, we barely get any information on it in the first place, and 3, it allows us to properly evaluate just how powerful everybody's favorite cursed spirit truly was, despite him being gone for so long. Even without that though, this chapter was great yet dreadful in all the best ways possible. With that being said, leave a like to help your boy out with all that algorithm nonsense, and now, let's get into it. We flash back a little bit right before the moment that Sukuna's squad wipes our boys. We finally see where Kusakabe and Ino have been for the past 3 to 4 chapters, and the first thing they mention is that Yuta was able to adjust the coordinates of his domain. This confirms something about domain expansions we weren't sure about before, and it's that this ability to shift your coordinates is not exclusive to Hakari, and I believed it was at least, because as we know, Hakari's domain is quite special compared to most, and has all kinds of hacks, jank, weird rules behind it, so I believe that ability was exclusive to Hakari. But as we see Yuta doing it, I believe that Yuta already knew how to do this before the time skip, because he did kind of imply that he didn't train, or at least as much as the others did by saying he cheated, but who knows. We'll probably get the exact specifics as to what went down later on in the series, because after this chapter, I'm 1000% sure that we're going to get answers to everything, but Gege isn't just handing them out willy-nilly. As the two continue to speak, they point out that everybody outside has taken their positions to prevent blind spots, and as soon as the barrier shatters, Maki will enter the battle. Ino says that he thinks the plan could have been better if more people entered the domain, and that Choso was supposed to be in there anyway. I agreed with this at first, as Sukuna really seemed to be close to being defeated in the last chapter, but you'll see why I changed my mind on this as we go through the chapter. Kusakabe responds to Ino, saying that Sukuna would be more on guard for Maki's sneak attack if he noticed people entering from outside the domain, so it's better for things to be this way. Then he's like, what makes you think any of us will make much of a difference anyway? And Ino's like, man, you and I both know you'd make a difference, stop playing bro. And luckily for Kusakabe, Maki's up next to enter the fight, and she begins to prep. He mentions that he's counting on her, and she gets into a launching stance, and she's about to begin her sprint. Kusakabe then says that Akotsu would give the signal the moment that Sukuna was more relaxed, and that's why they went about their plans in this manner, to handle the best or the worst case scenario simultaneously. They will structure their plans in a way that allows them to be prepared for both. We see that Maki has stabbed the blade into Sukuna, and that Rika has taken that time to retreat with Yuta's body. However, I don't believe he's gone. I said this in the previous review, the way that Yuta was cut, it just didn't seem like the world cutting slash really cut him in half. The way that Sukuna described it when hitting Gojo, it should be a straight line across the target no matter where they're at or position, and Yuta's wrist was not aligned with the rest of the slash thrown at the end of the battle with Sukuna. Also, Rika and Yuji seem to be fine this chapter anyway. Maki slashes upward in an attempt to cut Sukuna in half and end things there, but Sukuna is able to slide out of the blade and gain distance between him and her. He notes that Yuta has ended the domain himself, rather than Sukuna actually hitting him so hard that the domain forcibly collapsed. Sukuna figures out that this was a signal for the rest of the team to intervene, and to break down what Sukuna says here, when he landed that slash on Yuta, the domain cracked open. This caught Sukuna's attention because that would communicate to him that he defeated Yuta by forcibly collapsing his domain. While Sukuna's attention was towards his quote-unquote victory, Maki pierced him. He notices that this cut takes longer than others to heal, and this is because his soul was cut by the soul split katana. It's confirmed that if the soul is cut, you can only heal it if you're able to see the shape of your soul, and even when you can, it's still harder to heal the soul than the body. Not only this, but since he was massively weakened by his fight with Gojo, it's even harder for him to heal currently, but since he shared a body with Yuji, he can heal regardless. This does confirm that Yuji can also heal from attacks that directly hit his soul, and that it's even a possibility in the first place. I had believed that you can heal from any attacks that directly impact the soul, but that's just not the case. So this allows me to ask you guys, if Maki were to cut Mahito with the soul split blade, do you think he'd be able to regenerate from the attack with his natural regeneration as a cursed spirit because he's able to perceive the soul? Just let me know what you guys think. A lot of talking here, but this is important information when it comes to discussing the series, so I thought I'd hammer this in. As Yuji tries to run back into the battle against Sukuna, he stops in his tracks and falls onto the ground. He begins to cough up blood. He's confused for a little, but he puts it together. He's only recently learned reverse curse technique, so with all the injuries he's accumulated from fighting Sukuna so many times throughout this battle, he hasn't been able to properly heal himself. He's likely only been regenerating himself to the bare minimum that allows him to continue fighting. This explains why he coughs up blood before anything else gives out, because Sukuna has been cutting Yuji's stomach the most these past chapters. Interestingly enough, the fact that Yuji is still fighting and using RCT is the most impressive of all. He's been going at it with Sukuna for a while, and he doesn't even seem to be burned out whatsoever in terms of curse energy reserves. This could be due to him consuming his other brothers who had their own curse energy reserves. Choso comes up and puts his hand on Yuji's back, guiding him as to how he can properly heal himself. He then has Yuji visualize his body repairing itself on some Uncle Iroh type beat, and I don't know why they were saying that Choso wasn't a good teacher, because it seems like it here. Even then, this isn't the main concern that I have with this moment. How does Choso know how to use reverse curse technique if he's half cursed? I mean, it could be his half human side that allows him to use it safely, and if that's the case, has he been regenerating with that the entire time rather than the natural curse spirit regeneration that characters like Jogo and Hanami had been doing? Whatever the means, is something to think about, and this is probably something that Kenjaku wanted to see out of him. We come back to Maki and Sukuna as they run along a highway. As Maki gets the high ground, Sukuna sends a dismantle toward her way with no hesitation. But Sukuna should know better, because that is not hitting Maki. She goes for an upward swing with the katana, and Sukuna hops right over it, catching him midair. Then she goes in for a pierce, but Sukuna grabs onto the blade. And damn, when you look at the blade, it looks ridiculously huge in this panel. Anyway, Maki's like, alright, since you always got an answer for something, Gege ain't helping you here. She rotates the entire blade while Sukuna has a death grip on it, flipping him, and she's got this badass grin on her face while doing it. She swings her blade, sending Sukuna flying into a building, and he grabs onto it, unleashing multiple dismantles. This destroys the entire building and creates a wall of debris in front of both Maki and Sukuna. And as Maki's just standing still for some reason, she hears one chant from Sukuna, "Pair of meteors," and boom, a massive dismantle comes flying through that wall. But we know she hauled ass the moment she heard that, so of course it missed. Sukuna notes that Maki is able to see his technique much easier than the others, akin to how Mahoraga was able to do it back when he fought in Shibuya. This gives Maki much more of an advantage than it may seem at first, as every fight in the series is decided by someone being caught off guard. The likelihood of Maki being caught off guard by this is quite slim against Sukuna. Maki then takes her time to note Sukuna's beating heart, saying that Megumi really wasn't lying about that, huh? She asks if Sukuna is able to continuously beat his heart while fighting Maki, and basically brushes it off, saying yeah, that is no problem. Another nerf for our boy Sukuna. I wonder how he thinks he's just gonna go and fight the merger after all of this. We finally swap back to the GOAT Hakari, and although all of Tokyo seems to be frozen over, his J's are in perfect condition. Priorities, I guess. Nah, seriously though, it's probably because of the reverse curse technique coming out of his body. It's melting Uraume's ice. Hakari points out that Sukuna's presence is obvious, and when Uraume asks for elaboration, Hakari says that he did not expect his comrades to do fine against Sukuna, but he's still able to sense Sukuna's curse energy dropping. He takes the opportunity to say that his people are the ones in the lead, but Uraume hits him with the Lord Frieza, saying that Sukuna isn't really trying because he's not interested in our caste, and due to this, his curse energy can't accurately be gauged. Uraume then goes on to say that they should all be ashamed since their efforts combined do not surpass Gojo's, and even then, if they are to ignore the impact that the first fights had on Sukuna, he's still not even going all out. And with this realization, the chapter closed. I'm not gonna lie, Hakari seems like he's been getting messed up by Uraume, and I wish we got to see them fight a bit more rather than them talking here. So maybe next chapter. About Sukuna not really trying, yeah, this is reasonable in my opinion. We have been warned of Sukuna's strength for over 200 chapters, him single-handedly dominating the strongest era in history and all that stuff. He's truly living up to his strength, build up, and title. It's been a long time since an antagonist has had me genuinely wondering if he can be defeated. That's why I mentioned Frieza, because I know readers back then were in shambles thinking Frieza was almost defeated just for him to pull out the third form, and then say after that, this isn't even my final form. People are going to complain, but they'll come back to the next chapter on release day each week. Another reason why I think this works is because Yuji and Sukuna do need that one-on-one, and that's not going to happen with all these extras here. Yuji is typically handled in this way too. He'll play the assist sidekick role in these big battles, and when he has to close out the villain, he will, and I like that. It lets all the characters shine, meanwhile letting the inevitable Yuji moment build up. I'm gonna say it here since nobody else will. Yuta fans went out sad with that confirmation of Sukuna not really trying, parading on every media that exists just for Urume to say nah, Sukuna wasn't even trying, on top of like the 10 nerfs he had against him. As for the Gojo and Kashimo fans, I'll say y'all are safe. Sukuna made his fights with those two personal due to their greediness with the power they were given, not understanding anything, and he did point out that he wanted to teach Kashimo a lesson about that, which is why he did throw that skyscraper dismantle toward him in the first place, ruthlessly destroying him the same way he would destroy his own opponents back in the Edo period. So until further information comes out, I'm gonna let y'all slide. In the end off, I'll talk about the rough art, and I don't think it's that bad, but it is noticeable. I'm wondering why this only pops up when Maki's on the pages, but with that being said, I hope to catch you guys on the next chapter of Gege's love for Toji versus his love for Sukuna, and I appreciate you guys for watching. Peace out.